Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Bayonetta 2 Infinite Climax video walkthrough. This is chapter 4, The Two Meet. So this is the hardest chapter so far, and the title is a great giveaway as to why. You're going to be fighting your nemesis, your rival in this game, the Masked Lumen. But before we get there, there's a couple of fidelities. This is the first place you'll fight them on a standard game. You see that? How the hell did that hit me? I must have not been paying attention at that point. But we're carrying the Kefka into this level, which is the gun we're going to be using. And I say gun, you know, weapon, you know what I mean. I've got the Love is Blue on my feet, which is probably my favourite weapon in the game. It's kind of hilarious. There's all these crazy creative weapons, and my favourite ones are the pistols, which is a weapon I barely ever touched in the first Bayonetta. But on this game, I just adore the combos, and I think they've got enough diversity and enough launching capacity to do a lot of fun stuff. And all I really want to do on this game is get a really reliable way to launch enemies, keep them launched with the uppercuts and the dive kicks, and do some fancy stuff. But on Infinite Climax, the enemies are all so armoured that they sink really fast, and because witch time doesn't last long at all, it seems to be quite difficult to do it and to get anything all that consistent. And that's if you can even launch them, because some enemies just don't launch, even in witch time, and other times there'll be enemies that fly away from you. It's a lot of things that just speak volumes of my inexperience with the game. But here is a couple of the bow-totting acceptance creatures and the catch it and compassions. I believe the smaller ones are is it cachet? I don't really know what that word is. I should really look it up. I've not come across it. This is another enemy that has a delayed attack, which I can't dodge for toffee, because when something makes the I'm going to attack noise and flash, I press dodge, because I'm conditioned. And on this game, even on the hardest difficulty, the attack is so goddamn slow, you can grow old in the time it takes to hit you. And it's one of those strange things where I thought on the hardest difficulty everything would attack super fast. You know, I'm used to that. That's kind of what I like. And because it doesn't work that way, I get beat up by the silliest things. It's kind of brutal. But there is a quick transition after I looked around a little bit. I'm still exploring, guys. It's still quite new. I'm looking for things I've missed. And this is a glamour fight with a very elongated witch time because of the dodge during the cutscene. I have no idea how to use the Kefka effectively. A lot of the combos for it don't seem very weapon specific. You can only put it on your hands, and yet it only seems to have one wicked weave on the hand combos, which is the 5 X's, which results in you firing a swarm of hornets or bees or wasps or some kind of flying green creatures at the boss. And when you hit it, it's almost like it poisons the boss because they turn all purple and they look like they've got leprosy. So it's this bizarre weapon of, it fires really fast, each of the individual shots can be charged, and the payoff looks really weird and bizarre and could be really awesome, but I can't really tell. Like, almost every weapon you use on this game feels underpowered, and it feels underpowered because of how much you have to smack things. And this is a point I'm going to be drawing on quite a lot through my analysis of the mechanics here, because it reminds me of God Hand, and I really like God Hand, but on hard, the bosses have too much life. I don't think anybody would disagree with that sentiment. Even the best players spend hours kicking these bosses, doing the kick cancels on these bosses because it's literally the fastest way to deal damage sometimes, and even then, you feel like you're hitting them for weeks. And Bayonetta was a game I thought that struck the perfect balance. The enemies were spongy enough so that you could combo them and you could style on them and you could have a lot of fun, but they never overstayed their welcome. And if you wanted to kill them, you just used the wicked weaves and you destroyed them with really powerful and weighty attacks. And on this game, I feel like I'm doing super powerful, weighty attacks and it looks awesome and I'm demolishing them, and I look at the life bar and it's only halfway down. And you just think to yourself like, really? And it's a little jarring to me as a player, because I get the same feeling when I play Wonderful 101, but it's only on 2 different enemy types. The first one is the crabs. The crabs on Wonderful 101 seem to take forever, and I'm almost certain I'm doing it wrong. But then at the end, when I get a pure platinum, the game's telling me I'm doing it right, and it feels off. So there must be something that I need to figure out with that creature to make it much more fun to fight, because everything else on that game is balanced almost perfectly. The second creature is the dudes who are rip-offs of the bosses, the sword monsters, and the only reason they take longer than they perhaps should is because they block a lot, and I understand that one. But the crabs, I often feel like I'm taking too long, and then at the end I get the best rank, and it doesn't make much sense. Every single fight on this game, except for a few, feel like that feeling. They feel like bosses on God Hand on hard, and I've got to say, guys, to me it's not a good feeling at all. And the good news is the combat on this game, the animations, the particle effects, the everything about it, the hit registrations, this game is beautiful, and the combat in it is aside from a bunch of personal preference niggles that I'm going to be explaining throughout these videos, it's top tier. It's flawless in most aspects. It's really, really good. And that is the salvaging factor of just how much you have to hit some creatures. Because everything is so great, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm sure there's going to be some crazy, style combo videos because enemies take a bigger beating now. It's just, I'm so used to this gut, autonomous feeling of when things should die. Because I've played a lot of Bayonetta, and this is Bayonetta. It looks like Bayonetta, it plays like Bayonetta, but the enemies don't die like Bayonetta, and it's probably the biggest adjustment I'm going to have to get used to. And I don't want to call it a negative just yet, because I've only beat the game twice. I've put like 20 hours in, and I don't think that's any time at all in a game that has this much depth. So I'm hoping I'm doing something wrong, but it seems kind of strange at the moment. But this is the Masked Lumen, this is the first checkpoint. I do not recommend using Kefka. I really don't. You'll notice I've got the boss weapon. I'm trying not to use it. There's a change to this game when it comes to the enemy arms, which is completely unforgivable and I hate it. And it's the button mapping. Previously in Bayonetta you couldn't use standard attacks when you had an enemy weapon because it would use the enemy weapon, and there was 2 different buttons to do 2 different attacks with the weapon. They've got rid of that now. One button does one attack, and that's it. And the button that does that attack is the gun. So when you try and keep a combo going by shooting enemies, you can no longer do that because it uses your weapon. I hate it, and I hate it vehemently. In the grand scheme of things, it's a very tiny thing and it's completely personal, but it's enough to make me growl, and I've growled a few times. Because one of my favourite strategies on Bayonetta 1 was to shoot things. I had the stripper pole lance, dodge an attack, and then stripper spin. And it was an amazing strategy, and I can no longer do that, which makes me very sad. That is amazing. The fact the Lumen Sage turns into the wolf is brilliant, but I need to talk about this fight. This guy counters everything. It's brutally insane. You literally have to find a combo that works and use that. If you're going for style points, you have to keep on either shooting him or doing the dodge offsets to keep hitting him with damage, because I don't even know how you're going to pure platinum these levels. It's going to take some serious studying. I couldn't find a guaranteed combo that would allow me to do every hit. Regardless of witch time, regardless of combo, regardless of juggling him in the air, he always recovered before the Wicked Weaves. So all this is dodge his attack, punish him with a couple of quick hits, then get prepared to dodge his counter because he recovers insanely quickly and he does massive damage. The move he did just then, if you do not interrupt it, it'll kill you instantly. But watch, he's in the air. I did a heel stomp then to see if it did any more damage. There he does. I believe he's poisoned. There's a counter, there's a juggle. And I've completely got away from trying to juggle him in the air because it just kind of doesn't work. But here comes the dog. There's the evade. There's the dive kick. It didn't really help me too much, the afterburner kick. This is what you need to interrupt. So that was a checkpoint, I believe. And this is the second phase of the fight. So in the air, he's a little bit more aggressive. The big problem I have about this phase of the fight is, as much as I'm used to chaos in Bayonetta, it's a little bit too much here. Oftentimes, because I'm not used to this game yet, I find myself not knowing what the hell is happening because it's all too much. And I know that's the point, I know that's the design, but when you're getting brutally murdered in a few hits because you literally didn't see where he went, it can get a little like this. See that? He moved off of camera, and I believe you can move the camera on this section, sometimes, especially when you're holding attack buttons, it's really difficult to mess with the camera on the Wii U. Like, you can't claw it like I'm used to, because they've got the analog above the buttons, which I think it's fucking stupid. I truly do. I think it's the worst place to put an analog, and I have no idea why Nintendo has to be different, but I suppose it's the reason why they've been such gifted innovators, yet if I could swap it, I would in a second, because I just don't think it's a good place for an analog. However, all the camera issues that you can encounter on this game can be fixed by, you know, by either using the analog or by locking on. However, the lock-on is on the left now, and, you know, after something like 10 to 15 years of playing action games with the lock-on on the right, it's something I just cannot get used to. So if you ever see me do Stinger, or if you ever see me do any of the moves that involve those inputs, I'm not locking on, I'm double tapping, because it just doesn't feel natural to hold the left while using the left stick. It's a little bit like Street Fighter, doing combos and then pressing the left buttons, it just feels weird. But this boss has a tendency to dash off of screen and then dive at you, so you need to be aware that if he goes off of screen, you need to dodge unless you're keeping a lock-on on him or you're moving the camera, and for the most, he doesn't do it too much. The only enemy I've come across who goes off screen a lot and really screws you is the Golem in the second fight, but I'm going to talk about him when we get there. If you don't have the bat within by this point, what are you doing, son? You need it. It's a lifesaver. And right here is one of the worst checkpoints so far in the game. So on this sequence right now, you have to dodge. If you don't dodge, he'll almost instantly kill you. And if you die, you have to do the entire fight again before this, the flying section of the Lumen Sage. I recommend saving all your Infinite Climax for that section so you can do the quick combos and kill him quickly. It's completely unforgivable that there's no checkpoint on that moment, because A, it's a novelty sequence that barely turns up ever in the game. It has its own unique controls for it, because if you do certain punches there that don't hit him, you'll not do anything. You'll just do a punch that doesn't meet him, which is worthless. And you can literally fail before you realise what's happening. And I understand that the more you play, the more you'll understand it, but for someone who's on their first playthrough, who's struggled for hours to get to that sequence, when you die there and you have to do that entire fight again, which is a really tough fight, it just doesn't feel fair. And, you know, some games aren't meant to be fair, but Bayonetta was. And the checkpoints were always great, and it always made it feel possible. And I think there's a gross oversight here that I wish Platinum would fix, but they won't. Anyhow, good luck with it. It's not too bad. If you're having trouble, use the lollipops, use the items, you know, use the weapons you're most comfortable with, and yeah, good luck with it.